purpose of an antagonist is to trigger a weakness in the character. Scary stories have scary antagonists, and in these scary stories, the type of opposition is usually an otherworldly antagonist, so have a guess as to what purpose they serve in a character's story. What weakness do these scary antagonists trigger in the main character? Fear. Hello my fantastic writers, you all loved my series, The Psychology of Fear. So I, Joe Webb, a regular human being, am coming back today to do a one-off video for Halloween. There was once a little girl playing in the woods, and then the wind stopped, the sky blackened, time passed by so quickly. It's nighttime. She heard bellowing screams in the distance, echoing her name. Come here, come to me. She hid so that they wouldn't find her. In the corner of her eye, out of the tree line, two glowing figures emerged. They didn't see her. I can't hide here forever. I must face these creatures and find my way home. My parents would be worried. She stood up to face the figures, ready to confront them. She realized it was her mother and father searching in the woods with torches, calling out for her lost daughter at the dead of night. Had she not stood up with bravery, her parents wouldn't have found her, and she would have been lost in the woods forever. The scary creatures that you see in horror films are not just there to scare the crap out of you. This brings us to the overall point of the video, which encompasses every single scary story ever. What does the character have to overcome in a scary story? They have to overcome fear, and that is the character arc. Not to say the monsters are there to teach them a lesson, the monsters are just monsters. But the character can only save themselves, or others who need saving, so long as they overcome their fear. If they succumb to fear, then things aren't going to end well. So the first point I'm making in this video is that generally in scary stories, the main character arc will be to overcome fear. That may not necessarily mean to not be scared anymore. Fear is a natural reaction to danger. We can still be brave despite being scared. There are two types of bravery we see. Some characters will overcome fear entirely when they realize that the creature doesn't actually pose a threat. They will feel no fear. Like in the movie It, at the end of the story, they're no longer scared of the creature.
I am the eater of worlds.
Not to us, you're not.
They realize it's not actually a threat.
You're just a clown.
They realize either that they can defeat the creature,
You're a weak old woman.
or it was misunderstood and it was never malicious or dangerous from the start. But in other stories, they may never overcome fear entirely. That means they don't stop being afraid. They're afraid from start to end, but they must overcome the inability to take action despite being afraid. In other words, they must at some point choose to start fighting back, or to take productive action against the creature to save themselves or someone else, even though they're terrified. And there are plenty of horror stories where the characters are absolutely terrified that they never overcome the fear because the creatures are too deadly or too terrifying. So even if by the end of the story they defeat the creature, whatever happens, sometimes that fear never goes away. A lot of times in most serious stories, the fear never goes away because the creatures are to be taken seriously. You don't want the audience going away thinking, oh, well, they're not scary. You want audience to rewatch the film or whatever. However, in more family-friendly stories like Scooby-Doo, Hubie Halloween, the little vampire, the character does overcome that fear to some extent, and they become braver because they realise that the creatures aren't that scary after all, or that they were just misunderstood. Creating a character specifically made for a scary story. So how do you write a character in a scary story? Particularly a character who is vulnerable to succumbing to fear. Should I make them a cowering buffoon in their day-to-day life? Nah, that's a bit boring. You would hate that character from the start. Someone terrified of everything. We would be thinking, man up, grow a backbone. Someone that's scared of everything surely deserves to be haunted by ghosts and chased by zombies or followed by clowns. I mean, come on. In fact, we must write the opposite of a cowering wimp. We must show a character who tries to be brave. Someone who tries to hold a stern face in difficult situations, even though they're nervous. That is how we introduce these characters before the really scary stuff happens. Whatever their daily life is like before the scary stuff happens, you're going to give them difficult situations in their day-to-day life, scary, nervous situations that make them anxious or scared or sad or nervous. Situations where they can either run away or face it with bravery. Situations where they have to hold that brave face instead of cowering away. Just in their day-to-day life. Someone who tries to stand up for someone being robbed. Someone who stands up to bullies. Someone who goes on a ghost train with their friends to make them happy, despite being scared of it. They hold that brave face. These situations are dangerous or nerve-wracking, but they pale in comparison to the scary monsters that they'll face later on in the story. Why is writing a character who tries to be brave in everyday situations important for someone who we're going to scare the shit out of later with zombies or ghosts or creatures from another world? Bravery, courage, it's all one of the same virtue, which is fortitude, one of the 4 cardinal virtues. Someone who has courage during pain or adversity. Fortitude moderates the passion of fear, so we may remain reasonably fixed on doing good and taking productive action against problems, even if it means enduring something difficult, dangerous, or painful. Someone without fortitude, without bravery, courage, is someone who we feel almost deserves to be scared a little, because we feel like it's a good opportunity to learn some courage and actually become an honourable human being with bravery, with that fortitude, with one of those virtues. However, it's quite honourable for a character who demonstrates fear and anxiety yet shows bravery and courage. So when the scary stuff really does happen and they lose that bravery, we root for them to regain that bravery and courage that they had at the less scary situations at the start of the story. We hope that they can find that courage again to face the really, really scary thing. Another very common story arc in spooky stories, something you might not have thought about. And it's a story arc that we shouldn't forget to write. The unknown is a scary place to be. And in many scary stories, there's always a good mystery behind the scary stuff that's happening. A good mystery behind strange and spooky things is almost ingrained into these types of stories. The most common mystery arc in these types of stories: what's its weakness? Where did it come from? What caused it to be like that? What does it want? Why is it doing it? Is there logic behind its motive? Or is it just an abomination? Can we explain it with logic, or is it truly a supernatural phenomenon? Something we don't understand and could never understand. This is the key to creating a mystery, especially in horror films or any scary stories. Give plausible explanations for the cause to be something logical and possible and explainable. But also give plausible explanations for the cause to be supernatural and unexplainable. Something that we don't and could never understand. That is, I did a writing exercise in the 30-day writing exercise. I can't remember what one it, but I'll link it below. Go check it out. And we think, what explanation is true? Because we've got evidence for both explanations. So we don't know which is true. And we're never told. So I realised this is the way to do a great mystery for horror films and scary films. I realised this after watching The Lighthouse and lots of M. Night Shyamalan movies. M. Night Shyamalan movies. Shylaboo. Libla. I don't know. It's absolutely essential to mention this next bit, which is blatantly obvious and a bit boring, yet it will be missed if not mentioned. You have stories like sci-fi where they go off to other planets. You have Pixar animations that, about talking cats and stuff. And we see a very different world to our world. It's very different to our life and the world that we live in, because we're watching a world that doesn't exist in our real world, But in a lot of scary stories, particularly stories based around Halloween and other spooky stuff, it is set in the real world, in our world. Remind the audience that we are watching a spooky story set in our world that we live in. We see people go trick-or-treating in the story, apple bobbing, going into scary haunted houses. You see people going out for a night in a pub or out in a nightclub. You hear a song play on the radio that was top of the charts in our world. People have traditions that we have in our world. You see people have a cup of tea after a long day of work, or sticking the TV on and watching a show that exists in real life. Remind the audience that the characters do things that we do because we are watching characters who live in our world. So that when things go crazy, when things do get a little bit paranormal and a bit spooky, it's like we're watching the paranormal side of our world. And that is where the magic of Halloween comes from. We got trick-or-treating, we got dressed as monsters. And it makes the real world feel a little bit spooky, a little bit paranormal, a little bit unknown. A bit like there's more to this world that we can't see. And Halloween makes us feel that way. And if you can bring that feeling into the story that you're writing by showing them that it's set in the real world too, when it becomes spooky, when paranormal things start happening, then you can bring that magic to the audience. That yes, there are paranormal, spooky, otherworldly things taking place in our boring real life world, and it's happening to these people who live in your world, and that means it can happen to you too. Hello? That was a bit spooky. Now this final element of a scary story that I'm about to mention is probably the most important. How to write suspense and fear. You've got the general story plot points of a scary story from this video, the character arcs, the surrounding the fear, the mystery, etc.
Etc.
Now you have got the structural foundation of a scary story. You have to know how to push that character into those scary scenes. So how do you push a character into those terrifying scenes? You'll find out how to do it in the video linked below. I hope this video helped you understand the story arcs of a scary story. Now it's time for you to tell it in a scary way. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the series, The Psychology of Fear. I'm Joe Webb, a vamp storyteller. See you next time. No. Okay. I'm done. They're coming out.